Okay, I'm going to go through them all and then try to include links to individual numbers if you would prefer to just do the ones um, that you need to look at. Okay, so problem one for the review. Write the formula for each. Draw and label an illustration of each. All right, formula for a cylinder. Volume equals pi r squared height. Remember, that's just another way of saying base times height. But I'm not going to accept just base times height. You need to include this pi r squared to show me how you find the base. Draw an illustration. There's my cylinder. And the key things that you must have labeled are these variables, radius and height. Show me where they are on a cylinder. There's the height, which refers to the height, and the radius, which is halfway. It goes from the center to any edge. Okay, radius, not diameter. All right, a cone. Formula, volume equals 1/3 pi r squared height. It's the same as the cylinder, just multiplied by 1/3. There's my illustration. What do I need to label? I need to label the radius and the height. I need you to be careful. Don't label the slant height. I need you to actually clearly label the height. By now you know the difference. So there's the radius, and there's the height. All right, sphere. Volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Remember, spheres we cube by radius. And it's also 4/3. Draw my happy picture. And I only have one variable that I need to label, and that's the radius. So if you label something else, like the height or the width or something, whatever, this is really what you have to label, is the radius. All right. Number 2, a cone has a diameter of 10 inches and a height of 12 inches. Find the volume of the cone to the nearest tenth. Use 3.14 for pi. So I'm going to draw an image. There's my diameter. There's my height. But what's the problem? Well, I know that all these formulas ask me for the radius. So there's the radius. Radius is 5. You always have to pay attention to, are you being given diameter or radius? All right, there's my formula. Volume equals 1/3 pi r squared times height. Plug in 5 for the radius, 12 for the height. I get volume equals 1/3 5 squared times 12. I've got to do order of operations. It says I have to do an exponent before I do any multiplication and division. So 1/3 pi times 25 times 12. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of not a trick, but a different way of approaching this. In the past, I've had you multiply this out before you take a third, but you might want to, if you see something that you can divide by 3 easily, you might want to take care of that first. It doesn't matter with multiplication and division. It does not matter what order it goes in. Just like when you get to addition and subtraction, it doesn't matter what order you go in. So I'm going to show you, if I take 1/3 of that 12, now I'm going to have volume equals 4 pi times 25, right? Because 1/3 of 12 is 4. And now I just need to multiply 4 times 25. That gives me volume equals 100 pi. Multiply that out. Volume is about 100 times 3.14. Gives me volume is about 314 inches cubed. Don't forget your units in your answers. But if you're not comfortable doing this, don't worry. You don't have to do that. Because either way, you're going to get the same answer. So let's get back to that point where I was. 1/3 times 25 times 12. Can't forget pi. And let's go ahead and take the order that we've been doing. 25 times 12 gives us volume is 1/3 pi times 300. And I can take a third of 300. That's fine. Volume equals 100 pi. Multiply that out. And again, I get volume is about 314 inches cubed. Look at that. I messed up. It's about 314 inches cubed. All right. Either way, you get the right answer. Number 3. To the nearest tenth, find the volume of a sphere with a diameter of 7 centimeters. Use 3.14 for pi. So I'm going to sketch. There's my diameter of 7. What do we need for the formula, though? We need the radius. Radius is half of that, 3.5. My formula, volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Plug in 3.5 for the radius. Volume equals 4/3 times pi times 3.5 cubed. I've got to cube first. Do the math on a separate sheet of paper. I get volume equals 4/3 pi times 42.875. Now, if I want to just divide by 3 first, that's not going to save me any work. This doesn't evenly divide by 3, so I'm going to have to multiply first. Volume equals 171.5 over 3 times pi. Volume equals 57.17 pi. Substitute 3.14 for pi. We can multiply that out. We get volume is about 179.5 centimeters cubed. Again, don't forget your units. Don't forget its volume, so you're cubing. Number 4. A cone has a diameter of 8 inches and a height of 15 inches. Find the volume of the cone to the nearest tenth. Use 3.14 for pi. There's my cone, my illustration. But what do I need? I need the radius. And that's going to be half the diameter. Don't forget that. There's my formula. Volume equals 1/3 pi r squared times height. 1/3 because it's a cone, right? So volume equals 1/3 pi times 4 squared times 15. I just substituted in 4 for the radius, 15 for the height. Have to square first, deal with exponents first. Volume equals 1/3 pi times 16 times 15. Now, could you take 1/3 of 15 and simplify life? Yeah, it's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and go the safe way that I've been teaching you. Volume equals 1/3 pi times 240. Now I'm going to take 1/3 of 240. Volume equals 80 pi. Substitute 3.14 for pi. Multiply that out. I get volume is about 251.2 inches cubed. Number 5. Sorry, it's a little bit pale here. Find the volume of a sphere with a radius of 2.7 centimeters to the nearest tenth. Use 3.14 for pi. Alright, there's my sphere. Hey, they gave us the radius this time, so I don't need to worry about having it. There's our formula. Volume equals 4/3 pi times r cubed. Because it's a sphere, we cube the radius. Plug in 2.7 for the radius. And sorry, this is the ugliest one that you've got. So you'll just have to figure out what 2.7 times 2.7 times 2.7 is. It's going to give you volume equals 4/3 pi times 19.683. Be careful. Some students will round off too early. Don't round off until the end. So now I'm going to multiply 4 times that number and then divide it by 3. Volume equals 78.732 divided by 3 times pi. Do the division. Volume equals 26.244 pi. Now substitute 3.1 in for pi. Do the math on that and round off, and you'll get volume is about 82.4 centimeters cubed. Miss Decker was falling asleep again. There we go. Round to the nearest tenth is what it says in the directions. So follow that here. Don't forget your units. Don't forget to cube. Number 6. All right, here we have a composite figure. What's going on here? Let's see. Well, to have a cylinder inside a cylinder, that's really clearly not what is going on here. What we have is we have a cylinder here, and this part is empty. It's like a donut. Think about a donut, right? You have all the stuff here, and this part right here is empty. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the larger one, and we're going to subtract that hollow center. So we're going to figure out the volume of the larger, and we're going to figure out the volume of the smaller, and that's going to give us our answer. All right, so to figure out the volume of the larger, cylinder, we're going to use our formula. Volume equals pi r squared times height. Substitute in our values for the larger cylinder, 13 centimeters and 10 centimeters. 13 centimeters for the radius, that's this right here, and 10 centimeters for the height. Right? Volume equals pi times 13 squared times 10. Do the math. Volume equals pi times 169 times 10. Volume equals 1,690 pi. Substitute in for pi. Multiply that out. We get volume is about 5,306.6 centimeters cubed. All right, let's figure out the volume of the smaller one. Same formula, it's still a cylinder. But now we have slightly different dimensions, don't we? We have a radius of 8 and a height of 10. So substitute those values in. Exponents first. Volume equals pi times 64 times 10. Volume equals 640 pi. Substitute in for pi. Volume is about 2009.6 centimeters cubed. A little bit of a secret, you can ignore this if you're having difficulty, but if you're finding this easy, I could just leave it in pi for now, do the subtraction, and then multiply by pi. But since I already went this far, I'll just keep going. So now I'm going to take the volume of the larger cylinder, subtract the volume of the smaller cylinder. I'll get my answer. And I'll get volume is about 3,297 centimeters cubed. Okay. Number 7. This is kind of you can answer this a few different ways. So the key is whatever you do, you need to show me some work or some serious math thinking. Because you could possibly do this without showing me your work. I'm going to show the way with work. All right. So they're trying to figure out which shape they should use. All right, so let's figure out the size, how much yogurt can fit into each of these shapes. Volume for the cylinder is going to be pi r squared times height. Volume equals pi times, well, what's the radius here? It's not 9. That's half of that. Substitute that in. 7.5 is our height. Do the exponent. Volume equals pi times 2.25 times 7.5. Your multiplication skills are getting a workout. Volume equals 151.875 times pi. Now I'm actually going to leave this in terms of pi. You can figure the rest out. I'm going to leave it here in terms of pi, and I'll tell you why in a moment. All right, let's figure out the volume of this shape. Wait a minute. That 4.5 looks familiar. Hey, this shape has the same height and the same radius. Oh my goodness, I'm going to save a lot of work. Okay, because what happens? If it's got the same radius and the same height, do I need to do all the same math? No, this is just going to be 1/3 of that, right? Because that's our formula. It's exactly the same, except it's just 1/3, because this takes 3 of these to fill that up. All right, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that, and I'm going to divide it by 3. Or multiply it by 1/3, either way. And I'm going to get volume equals 50.625 pi. Wow, I saved a lot of work just by thinking about that. All right. Again, I'm going to leave it in terms of pi. Let's move on to the sphere. Radius is 4.5. Unfortunately, there's not really any shortcuts you can do this time because it's a different formula. It's just so different. Volume equals 4/3 pi times r cubed. Not squared. Don't forget to cube it. Substitute in our radius. Figure out what 4.5 cubed is. Multiply our numerator times that number, then we're going to divide by our denominator. Unless, would that have divided? No, that doesn't divide evenly by 3, so. Divide by 3. Okay. Now, why I left all these in terms of pi? Well, I can still compare, right? I can tell which one has the most or the least volume because I know pi is always the same, right? So I can tell from this that if the soccer club wants to be really honest and give people the most money for the most yogurt for their money, they're going to want to use the cylinders. However, if the soccer club wants to make the most amount of money, who cares about the customer, then they're going to want to use the cone, because that has hardly any yogurt, their lowest volume, so they're going to use the least yogurt out of any of these three shapes. Or you could say, well, maybe they want to balance honesty and cost and use this bizarre sphere, whatever. Remember, you've just got to use math reasoning. Okay? I need to know that you know which volume is the greatest. You could have multiplied this out by pi if you want, and you would end up getting these numbers. 477 centimeters cubed, 159 centimeters cubed, and 381.5 centimeters cubed. And again, it's the same reasoning, right? Which do you want your soccer team to be honest, make a lot of money, like Donald Trump, or kind of somewhere in between? But you've got to reason it out. Here's my answer. I figure they're doing a fundraiser for a reason. They want to make the most money. And I said they should buy the cones because they'll use the least yogurt for $2.50 and make the most money. All right. Number 8 coming up. There we go. Composite figure. Find the volume. What do we have? We have a rectangular prism and we have a cylinder. Oh, simple enough. We just have to add the prism plus the cylinder. That's going to give us the volume of the whole shape. So, volume of the prism first. Length times width times height. Look how nice this is. It even gives it to us in case we don't remember. So, volume equals length is 12, width is 7, height is 6. Volume equals 84.6. I just multiplied these two out. Now I'm going to multiply these two. Volume equals 504 meters cubed. Okay, cylinder. Volume equals pi r squared times height. That is the formula for the cylinder. You need to know this. We didn't give it to you. Let's see. The radius is 9 and the height is 4. All right. We don't need to worry about diameters getting confused. So volume equals pi times 9 squared times 4. Deal with the exponent. Volume equals pi times 81 times 4. Volume equals 324 pi. And now substitute in for pi, and I get volume is about 1017.36. Now this composite figure, we're not hollowing anything out, we're just adding them together. So add these two numbers together. Make sure to line up your decimals. A lot of you are going to make mistakes on that. Please try not to. If it helps, you can certainly put your decimal and fill that in with zeros. Add them up. And make sure you round off to the nearest tenth if that's what the problem's asking for. Volume is about 1,521.4 cubic meters. All right. I hope that you are being awesome for your substitute teacher if you're at school. I hope that you're being awesome for your parents if you're watching this from home. Keep being awesome. I will see you in class.